Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
Kapiti representative on the Greater Wellington Regional Council, Penny Gaylor, good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning to all your listeners.
Lovely to talk to you, and we need your assurance, Penny, that we are safe and sound. I imagine enormous work is being done behind the scenes to keep the Greater Wellington Regional facilities and activities as safe as possible.
Yes, and that's happening on all fronts, I have to say. So this is a really good opportunity if I can just run over some of that stuff for you.
Please do.
So that people know that we're actually on top of making sure we're ahead of everything as much as possible. And so I guess first and foremost people think of us as the public transport provider. And so the things that we've had in place from the start of this week is that Regional Council has worked with all the different companies that provide, of course, those that provide the train, but those that provide the different bus services across Kapiti, Wellington, the Hut, Porua, all those different providers have got, on top of the usual cleaning regime, have got a new daily cleaning regime. So they're making sure, for example, on the rail, that there's daily cleaning of all the trains and the key kind of focus areas like, your handrails and your buttons, and that the driver cabs and the stations where people are waiting. And of course, you're around people, you're sitting on seats, you're holding the seats with your hands, opening doors and all that sort of thing. So all that is happening. And alongside that with the buses, all the companies that provide the services in our region, again, they're doing daily cleaning regimes, particularly on all those touch point services that people get in and out of a bus, onto a seat and off a seat, and pushing a button to get the bus to stop. And also because the ferry that goes up to Eastbourne, so all that as well.
Look, it's interesting. As you were speaking, Penny, you made the point about buttons, and we've got some cleaner sanitizer here in the studio, and I've just had to spray the keyboard of the computers we have. Of course, radio these days is full of computers, so I've just sprayed those because now that's a very good point. The buttons, that's something that we make daily contact with, and in this case, though, your workers primarily using those buttons, but of course these days on the train you've got to press a button to get off and on, don't you?
Yes, on the bus, the trains will kind of do it more automatically for you when you stop at a station, but particularly the buses. So, all that stuff has been managed for you so that you can know that we're taking as much care as possible, above and beyond, I reckon, too, because that's the way we should be thinking. So certainly in that regard, that's what we're doing. As an organisation, we've got the skin in the game with Remo, who are, right in amongst this mix in terms of the kind of emergency management for our region. So we have a lot of staff that are all trained up in terms of supporting those services. So we as an organisation might in the near future have to make some calls on, here's some work that can actually just stop for a bit. It might be the stuff that people won't notice, the kind of the behind the scenes stuff that's going on, the planning and the strategy kind of stuff. But certainly anything that's about a service that the public we want to deliver, those things will be the things that carry on. But it's we're looking at what things might be okay to slow down for a time while we utilise those people in other areas for the things we need to keep going on.
Yes, what you've talked about is a lot of work already, Penny, isn't it?
Absolutely. The last couple of weeks has really ramped up in terms of our getting, because we have all these plans. It's a case of when this kind of thing happens, you kind of go, okay, this is the specifics of the situation. Yep. So how do our generic plan, how do we now tailor that to the specifics of what's going on here? So, being mindful, for example, something like this is actually not like a flood where it comes, it days, and then it's gone, probably in a matter of days. this is more of a long haul changing environment for us as a workplace, as an organisation. So we need to think about, if we're going to be changing who's doing what within our organisation for a time, it actually could go on for quite a while. So we need to make sure that we have a roster of things that is going to make sure that people don't burn out after the first month of change, because it might well go on beyond that.
Oh, it absolutely could.
Absolutely.
As you say, you say the long haul. I think we're in this for several months. Could we go back to the public transport, Penny? Because it emerged as we learn more about flying in an aeroplane that, in fact, the aeroplanes are relatively safe in terms of the way they turn over the air quality and also the filtering systems that they use. Now, public transport, we all want and need our public transport, but let's face it, there is an issue there. What about the air conditioning? Both the rail and the new buses have got air conditioning systems. Are they part of this regime as well?
It is. And so, for example, on my list of things that they're doing daily on buses, recleaning the air conditioning system. So that's good for us.
Yes.
And for the rail, they are weekly cleaning the air conditioning filters on there.
Okay. So that's a certain amount of comfort. And this is really important, because one can imagine that if, perish the thought, we get to this community spread that is the big dread that I believe is happening right now in Melbourne, which is just across the water from us, that at that stage, the public transport operations, I think, will get even more scrutiny. And for our region, economically, that has got an enormous implication, hasn't it?
Yes, and, so I'm mindful of that's our part of it. So all that we can do, and we've had really good support and immediate buy-in from the providers, as say, who are doing a really good job to make sure they are consistent across all this as well. So, that's working well. Very mindful that, for our communities, the small businesses we have, that will hurt immediately.
Absolutely.
So, being mindful that supporting our local businesses, there's certain things we want to help them keep doing their business. We don't, we want everybody, people to stay healthy. We want businesses to stay healthy too, please.
Absolutely. If it comes to the stage where the separation rules that we hear of that we should observe in community events have to be observed in public transport, in other words, 1.5 and 2 metres separation, is there any way on God's earth that our public transport system could cope with that?
Well, I'd say that the first thing is, because there will be people changing perhaps their work patterns, more people working from home, that, we have had a lot of, because of the increase in capacity usage on our public transport services, we've had a lot of instances of people standing in those peak time frames. So that will naturally change. And, so you won't have the overcrowding that we do have in some of those real peak rush hour
Sardine
windows.
City.
Yeah. So you'll actually have, you'll have, a kind of the allocation of seats. You'll have, you won't be holding onto rails overhead. You'll actually just be sitting in your seat. So hopefully that will be more comforting for people, as well as actually being more comfortable for people. So, there will be some kind of natural changes happening.
Is there any,
quite quickly anyway.
Is there any opportunity to increase the capacity of public transport so that you could cope with lower capacity per trip? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So the frequency of services, so that you could actually have turning them through a bit more. Probably not, because, for example, rail schedules are very, very tight time frames, and they've also got freight rails on those same lines. It's a real science about it, getting trains up and down those rail lines. With buses, that's been the reality too of all the bus changes. We actually just don't have a lot of extra actual buses, and we've had a bus driver shortage.
Yes,
now we're kind of all on top of that now, but we don't have the ability to ramp that up further.
Indeed. And, of course, we've got a review of public transport coming up. Do you think that discussions such as these may figure in that?
Probably not specifically, because I would see that we're kind of managing, that's sort of outside of what we're really wanting to find out about from the review. So, of course, some of these things, this is part of our business as usual. We're still having the bus review for the Kapiti Coast bus services. We, have opportunity for people to share their views, and we can do this online.
Indeed.
So, you can carry on preparing and thinking about and putting forward your views and suggestions around how well the services are working across the Kapiti area, where the bus stops are, all that sort of, the buses and the kind of the experience that you're having and the frequency, the timetable, the route, all that. You can send it to us online.
Okay. Well,
Great
it's not business as usual.
Indeed.
It's not business as usual in some other respects, and I see, and this must hurt you personally, the gravel grab is no longer on.
Yeah, we pulled that for this Saturday. Just best to, we don't absolutely need to have it. Let's not have it right now.
Okay. We live in interesting times. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Penny Gaylor. Thank you.
And thank you very much, John. Everyone take care, and just, check in again with me, John, if you want any update. I'm happy to talk about all this stuff anytime.
Thank you so much. All the very best to you and yours, and yes, stay safe. All the best. Bye. There we are, Penny Gaylor.
106.3 Beach FM.